Welcome to another episode of Founders Club. Today I'm going to be interviewing Austin Zelan, who is the founder of Westgate Fund and has over 1.1 million followers on social media. He's one of the top experts on creating passive income in the United States, and we are going to be breaking down some of the most creative and cutting-edge passive income strategies that I've ever heard, and I guarantee that you haven't heard of most of them. We're also going to be breaking down how he's able to automate 90% of what he does so he doesn't have to be involved and can be hands-off, and how anyone can create a six-figure-a-year passive income portfolio regardless of where you start. If you have any questions, put them in the box down below. As always, make sure you elbow drop that like button. And if you like money, you like real estate, this is the show for you. Hit that subscribe button and we'll see you on the inside. Welcome to Founders Club, the show for real estate entrepreneurs. All right, so I'm very excited to be sitting here today with Austin Zelan. This is going to be a little bit different of an episode than normal, a little less real estate and a little bit more about passive income and some really creative ways that Austin's been able to generate a lot of money, not only for himself, but for his community and for his clients. And we're just really excited to jump in and learn a little bit more about the creative strategies that he's using to win right now in today's market. So thanks for coming.
Thank you so much for having me.
Appreciate you.
Yeah.
And we got to give a shout out to Adam Navarrete for hooking this up and
Yeah.
connecting us. So shout out, Adam.
Shout out Adam.
So one thing I noticed is that you recently bought what looks to be a dream car, brand new Lamborghini. So how did that feel?
Oh, it was great, man. Actually, I bought it about a year ago. And yeah, that's always been my dream car. Growing up, I was like, man, I really want a Lamborghini. And I remember even when I was younger and I didn't really have any idea of what money was, I would always ask my parents to buy a Lamborghini because I totally thought it was a practical car. I was like, why wouldn't you? You
Of
know?
course. Yeah.
And so anyways, they said no. But I was determined to get one myself. And so for years, that's been my dream car. I always knew I'd have one. I just wasn't quite sure how I'd get there. But I was able to do that last year. And since then it's just escalated. So
That's amazing. Well, very cool. Congratulations on that.
thank you. Thank you.
So let's jump in a little bit. I'm curious to know kind of how you got started I know you have a little bit of a real estate background, so I definitely want to jump into that, but just kind of how you got started in the game.
Yeah, so I actually come from a corporate background. So I used to do consulting for Microsoft. So back in the day, I did some marketing, did some consulting for Microsoft, specifically in like business strategy, and working with their cloud, so Microsoft Azure. And throughout that time, I was learning how to trade Forex. So I was trading. I wasn't like super consistent back then. I was just becoming consistent. And then at a certain point, it just like clicked and I just, was able to be consistently profitable. And I realized that, it's all a big mental game for the most part. Trading itself is simple, but it's not easy, And so making that transition was very important for me because I realized that, hey, I don't want to spend all my time sitting behind a desk, being in the office. I don't really want to do these things for the rest of my life. There's other things that I'm passionate about. I'm part of several organizations, and there's passions in my life besides sitting behind a desk. And so for me, it was like, okay, so how can I still maintain my lifestyle, still maintain this income that I have, but also be able to focus on the things that I truly want to do instead of the things that I have to do in order to pay the bills. So for me, that was trading. And I learned how to trade consistently. Once I became consistent, I started looking for ways to automate the process because at that point I had kind of just created a second job for myself and I had to trade every day. So I was like, man, what if there was a way that I could just automate everything?
Mm,
And that way it would be truly passive for me. And so I ended up creating a strategy that is an automated Forex strategy. It's called an EA, an expert advisor. So basically a bot that trades automatically. So I created the strategy and then I hired some people who would actually put that into code for me. I have no idea how to code, but I was able to trade. So we kind of partnered up on that. I paid them to code it for me. And I was like, cool, let me start using it and see what happens.
right.
And I was a little scared to use it on my own money. So I actually went out and I got credit cards. but I got personal credit cards, which was a horrible idea because once I maxed out all those limits, Bank of America's calling me like, "What the heck are you doing? We're gonna shut down your card." And I was like, "Oh no." So tanked my credit score. However, it was a really good move because I'd say I got about $45,000 worth on those credit cards, pulled all the cash out, put it into the software, and started using my trading software on that account. And by the end of the year, I had over $200,000 in the account. And I'm like, man, this is cool, man. Maybe I should start scaling it.
Wow.
And so long story short, paid off the cards and started taking on clients that would lease the software from me.
Okay.
So they start their own account, they fund it, and then from there, I just connect my software and it starts trading for them automatically. So fully automated, and they just pay a subscription fee every month.
Hmm.
So it ended up being a pretty cool model, fairly successful. And then from there, I just started branching out. I'm like, cool. So I've made some money here. Now I want to diversify to protect my assets. And so started investing into Bitcoin mining, like way back in the day, oil wells, some real estate, e-commerce, exotic cars, watches, a lot of stuff.
Amazing. Yeah, so I definitely want to get into all that because we were talking a little bit before we started, and some of the strategies you're using are really cool, really innovative, really different, and appear to be going really well. So I'm excited to talk more about that. Um, so you're at Microsoft, you're trading on the side, you're having success, you leverage that success to build a bot.
Yep.
This bot now is trading for you automatically
Yeah.
based on your rules or whatever parameters you set in there. You're noticing that it starts winning. You really put yourself on the line by leveraging credit cards to borrow the money to put into this thing.
Yeah.
So you definitely had a lot of skin in the game. Um, you made a couple hundred grand profit off of that, paid off the cards, and then started taking on clients.
Yep.
So tell me on about where it went from there on like your passive income journey.
Yeah, so once we built it up to, I'd say maybe 25 million dollars worth of accounts using the software, um, from there I was like, okay, well, I'm super into this Forex thing, but I want to make sure that I'm protected. I want to make sure that I'm making money in other places as well. And so I just started experimenting really. I was always curious about different investments, and so many things sounded good. So I was like, well, why don't I just try this and that and that? And I just started trying everything left and right. And that taught me two things. So number one, well, not most, but I'd say maybe 40% of investments tend to just not work out. And it's kind of interesting. Like, no matter how good of an analyst you are in the investment space or how good you are at picking good investments, there's still going to be a percentage that just doesn't work out. And it's not because it's a scam or that the model doesn't work. Um, Sometimes there's just changes that happen. So I've seen this most dramatically in the e-commerce space.
Okay.
Amazon stores, like drop shipping stores, Walmart drop shipping stores, these platforms love to shut people down, and so almost every single one of my investments in that space has been shut down.
Mm.
However, that has also taught me which ones did work. So I still do have Amazon stores running that are profitable, but I just had to change the model a little bit. So there's always different things in the industry that happen, and different shifts that happen that cause some investments to just not be profitable. And that's the reality of investing. And so number one, that taught me which investments were profitable, which were not profitable. And then the other thing is that I learned how to diversify my risk, both internally and externally. So, what I mean by that is, let's say internally in the e commerce space, I'm diversifying because I'm not all in on Amazon. I have Amazon stores, Walmart stores, Facebook Marketplace, Shopify, all these different platforms that I'm using.
Mhm.
So, internally within that sector of my portfolio, I'm diversified. But externally, I'm also diversified. So I'm not just in e-commerce. I also own a bunch of oil wells and I'm mining Bitcoin over here. And then I have rental properties and I have exotic car rentals, like all these different external diversifications, which protect my portfolio and cause me to not miss out on the big winners and also to not really be affected by the losers. So
Mm.
net profitable, a diverse portfolio tends to be net profitable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's just part of the numbers game, like a certain percentage, like you're saying, are just not gonna work out,
Yeah.
and that's part of the game. Um, so I want to break down a lot of these strategies because it sounds like you're very well diversified. You're doing a lot of different things. All of the strategies you are using are almost 100% passive, which I think is amazing. Um, why don't you tell me a little bit about your real estate side of things first, and then we'll go into some of the more exotic type investments.
Yeah, so in real estate, I've traditionally just kind of bought and held real estate. And so I tend to just do long-term rentals or Airbnbs, stuff like that. I have done some Airbnb arbitrage. I think it's a really cool model, and I think it provides access to a lot of people to investments that otherwise they wouldn't be able to take advantage of. However, I'm sure as you know, it's not as profitable because you miss out on appreciation, on different tax benefits and stuff like that. So there are downsides, but at the end of the day, I can get into a house for like 5K and start my Airbnb business.
Right.
That's extremely accessible for a lot of people. And so for some people that enter my program, that makes sense, right? We get them the funding that they need, maybe 50, 100, $150,000, but they're like, "Hey, well, I actually want to have instead of buying one house with that money, I want to have 20 Airbnb arbitrage houses, right?" And so they start making some cash flow, and then from there they can start scaling into ownership. So I
Okay.
feel like that's a more mature stage as an investor. But for the most part, I have a couple different plays that I do in real estate. I really, really love the Florida market.
Okay.
It's been really good to me. And I've seen a lot of appreciation there, so fix and flips and rentals and stuff like that.
Mm,
So of course, I have a team managing that. I act as a passive investor in all these investments. So I have a professional team that manages my investments, and they actually go out there and do the construction and the listing and selling and photography and all that stuff. I also invest in some real estate up in Pennsylvania. So Pennsylvania is a really cool play. Where basically, I'm sure you've heard of a model where you buy these houses, you renovate them a little bit, you rent them out, you refinance, and then
yep.
you buy another one. And so we're
The
basically just
burr and repeat.
the Burr method, yeah, from Thatch. So,
Yeah.
yeah, we use that method, and it's good. It's a different play, definitely than all the other ones. But in some areas, I strategically want to hold real estate. Pennsylvania is not really one of those states. I do hold a lot of those houses still, but it's not because I think that it's going to go up dramatically in value. Whereas if I'm on the beach in Florida and I know economically what's going on in the United States and I can see the migration to Florida, that makes a lot of sense for me
Yeah.
to hold that property
Mhm.
because it's just going up in value. You're never going to be able to replace that. So,
Yeah. Where in Florida are you looking? Is that, like, kind of around Disney World, or is it more beach
no.
stuff?
Yeah, more beach stuff. So I love the Tampa area,
Okay.
but to the beach from Tampa. So like Clearwater, St. Pete,
Nice.
Sarasota,
Yeah. Been to Tampa a couple times. It feels very much like San Diego. I feel like it's like an East Coast San Diego. I
East Coast, San
like it out
Diego.
there. So let's take one step back. I
Yep.
think Airbnb arbitrage is a big opportunity. What I really like about it is with prices the way they are now, especially here in San Diego and a lot of the other bigger markets, it's cost prohibitive for a lot of people to get started with real estate investing and just buying an Airbnb and doing the traditional model. So why don't you break down kind of what Airbnb arbitrage is and maybe some pros and cons that we can run through?
Yeah, definitely. So I would say Airbnb arbitrage is a great model in a lot of markets, unless you specifically want to benefit from tax benefits and appreciation of real estate.
Right. The downside is you don't own it.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
downside is you don't own it, but the upside is you can literally get into a house for like five to $10,000. Of course, depends on the market, but a lot of times what I see in Florida is you find a house for like $2,000 a month. All right, and oftentimes you're getting the better deals off market. So maybe somebody just puts out a picket sign like for rent by owner. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Mhm.
And you go out there and you negotiate a contract with them. The thing is that you have to understand the market that you're in. So down there, a lot of these houses are owned by maybe older people or maybe their families. And so they don't really want a big headache. If
Mhm.
you come up to them and you tell them, "Hey, I want to rent your house for the next 4 years, but instead of $2,000 a month, I'll pay you $1,800 a month," they would highly consider that. because they're like, oh, so for the next 4 years, I don't have to do anything, and I
Right.
just make $1,800 a month on this paid off house
Mailbox
that my
money.
grandma used to live in. Like, okay, perfect,
Yeah.
and
Okay.
it makes a lot of sense. But here's the math behind that. In the next 4 years, it's very likely that rent would have gone up.
Right.
So you're making a huge margin right there just in not increasing your rent. Number two, you can rent that house out on a daily basis. So they're renting out on a 4-year basis to you. So price naturally is going to be lower. However, you could probably list that thing on Airbnb for 150, 200, 250 bucks a night, just
Hmm.
depending where it's at. So let's say you're doing 200 bucks a night. $200 a night, I would say on average, you could expect maybe like a 75 to an 85%
Right.
occupancy.
Call it 20 nights a month.
Yeah, 20 nights a month.
Yeah.
So 20 nights a month at $200 a night, it's
Making
$4,000.
4 grand. Yeah.
Yeah, 4 grand. You don't even have to own the house. Some people even just rent furniture. So instead of going out and buying furniture and having a big expense up front, it's $200, $300 a month on furniture,
Wow.
right? Maybe some utilities and stuff like that. So you should be clearing net profit $1,500 to $2,000 a month
That's amazing.
just on the spot. You don't own the house. And the big benefit with not owning the house is, hey, let's say economically something happens and all of a sudden people like are not traveling to Airbnbs. Like we had that happen recently, and people just shut down Airbnb. You're not allowed to Airbnb. Okay, so now you're not responsible for the mortgage payment. I know people who lost their houses because they were responsible for 80, 100, 200 mortgage payments on houses that they could no longer rent.
Mm,
Well, you're protecting yourself from that economic shift if you're just leasing, right? Because you could just exit the lease and not lose your entire investment.
right.
So you're very, very protected in that model.
Right.
However, guess what? The Florida market also happened to appreciate about 35% in the last year.
Hmm.
So did you benefit from that? No, you didn't. Right?
Right.
You didn't get any tax benefits. You lost out on a lot of benefits. However, you were very, very protected. So, depending on the investor's personality, I would say if you're more conservative, just do arbitrage. Try it out, get familiar with the model, but as you grow as an investor and as you have some money that you could potentially put at risk, you could also own some real estate because it's also a great inflation hedge,
Yeah.
right? We buy this house, we hold this physical asset, and we're protecting ourselves from inflation and building wealth. So,
Love that. Yeah, I love that, and I like the idea of renting the furniture too, because obviously that's a big Airbnb cost.
yeah,
I never really thought about that, but I love that. And then to your point, even if like a big thing happens, if you've negotiated a good enough deal on the front end, you could probably still get someone else to lease it for 2 grand a month as a long term rental, and just take the $200
yeah.
profit and still be all right.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you could do like a month-to-month model or something like that, and chances are rent prices have gone up since
Right.
you negotiated
Right.
it, and so the key is getting in at a good price point and making sure they're okay with Airbnb.
And yeah, that was gonna be my next question is how are you presenting that to the owner? Are you just saying, "Hey, I wanna do this Airbnb and da da da," or are you just asking to allow a sublease, or how does that work?
So it kinda depends. So we obviously do not lie that we're gonna do Airbnb,
Sure.
but we position it in a way that makes sense. So we have a team, like I don't do it personally, but we have vendors that will go out and do that for our clients.
Mhm.
So they'll literally negotiate these Airbnbs. The client pays a fee to them, obviously, but it's kind of like wholesaling, but for Airbnb arbitrage. So they find the deal for you, they negotiate it, you just show up and sign the lease. So you don't have to do any of the work.
Okay.
Fully passive, right? But with that, you have to realize that this property owner also like they have to understand that you're doing Airbnb. And so the way we position it is, hey, I'd like to rent this house long term. And when I'm not here, I'd like to Airbnb it. So they
Mm,
have to be able to okay that in the lease,
okay.
that it's okay to Airbnb it.
Right.
And obviously, there's usually some sort of like rules that you have to follow, like, hey, don't trash the place and stuff like that.
Sure.
Like, be decent about it. But that's on your responsibility and also the management company that runs the Airbnb for you. They have to vet people before they come in, not
Yeah.
just allow anybody.
Yeah. No, I'm sure that's a big part of it.
Yeah.
Um, Last question on that front. Any particular type of properties that make more sense than others? Like I imagine condos are probably a little bit more difficult with HOAs versus just a house in a neighborhood. But what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, for the most part, I'd say single family residences are the best.
Okay.
However, we're also going into a niche market, penthouses. So
Okay.
penthouses in Miami. So you could easily get a penthouse there for maybe like 8 grand, 10 grand a month, and you could rent that thing out for like 2 grand a day.
Wow.
It's crazy.
Wow.
Obviously, it's a different market and it's a very different type of thing that they're rented for, but they can be extremely profitable. So I'd say for the most part, beginners should stick to single family residences, but penthouses is a pretty cool idea. And then you have a penthouse in Miami for whenever you're there.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. No, that's killer. I love that as a
yeah.
strategy. And I can only imagine how much you could get per night for a penthouse in Miami. It's got to be crazy numbers.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Um, okay, so we're gonna go through a lot of passive income strategies. Number one was Airbnb arbitrage. I think that's really cool. At the end, we'll tie it all together too on how you can work with Austin and his team on because he's very well connected in the space and can really help with getting people set up and getting them going and whatnot. Um, so let's now talk about exotic cars because I know that's another way that you've been doing really good on passive income. So why
Oh,
don't
yeah.
we let's break down the exotic car strategy.
Oh, yeah, exotic cars, I mean, the way I see exotic cars is basically like real estate, you know? We do it with exotic cars, we do it with private jets. It's very, very similar, it's just this real estate happens to be on wheels, right? And so, it's kind of like the Airbnb arbitrage model, except you own the car. So, um, let's say, for example, you buy a Lamborghini Huracan, or, a really great car right now is a Rolls-Royce Wraith, which I actually bought one last week because I know it's gonna be a good rental. And so you buy one of these cars, 200,000, right? Down payment $20,000 to $30,000 typically. So you put that money down, you have your monthly payment, usually about I'd say two to $3,000 a month. If your credit's like really bad, maybe four or five. But at the end of the day, you're renting this car out for $1,500 to $1,800 a day. And depending on the market,
Wow.
sometimes we're doing over $2,000 a day on these cars. And so on average, I'd say you could expect to rent this car for 10 to 15, sometimes more days per month.
Hmm.
And so if it's rented that many days, let's say 12 on average, and you're doing $1,800 a day, it's what, about $20,000 that you're doing, right?
Yep.
And then if you're up in New York or somewhere in like a high level market,
Or
you
Miami
could
or yeah.
yeah, Miami, New York, like you could charge more for this car and it's gonna be rented a lot more. It's not uncommon for these cars to do 30, $40,000 a month in those markets, especially in Manhattan. There's so much demand there, right? And
That's
so
unreal.
if we're doing that on the cars, the best part is that you don't do any of it. You just buy the car, you finance it, and you ship it to a company that I connect you with, and they handle all the exotic car rentals. Now, there's a couple things that go into that: insurance, insurance claims. Let's say somebody scratches your bumper or curbs your wheel. What do? Well, they have to have a system in place and a contact at the insurance agency so that they can get it fixed really quick.
Hmm.
You have to be back out on the road as
Yeah.
quickly as possible. So if you're trying to do it on your own, it's a little bit tough because it's you maybe you didn't check their insurance closely enough and they had it for 40 days before they rented your car, and now insurance doesn't want to cover it because they require a minimum of 90 days. And then, oh, it takes 3 weeks to get your claim in, right? They have all those channels already established
Mm.
because that's literally their entire business. All they do is rent exotic cars. So we're taking their well-oiled machine and we're taking our car and just placing it in that system
So
and
you're
just letting it
helping
run.
them add to their
Oh yeah,
inventory and they're helping you by managing the car and
exactly.
making sure it's not stolen or
Mhm.
disappearing. And I'm sure they put
Yep.
trackers on it and all
Yep,
that fun stuff.
trackers, kill switches, everything. Yeah, and so they're managing that whole side of the business, but the cool thing is that it doesn't take a lot of extra effort for them because they're already doing it.
Right.
It's just another car to them.
Yeah.
And they're taking part of the profits, obviously, every month, so you split the profits with them, but for you, it takes off a massive load of work. You don't have to do any of the work. You just benefit from the profits that are coming in because they're managing it for you. So that's a truly passive income stream. On the first of every month, you wake up, oh, I got a direct deposit, $15,000 for the last month that my car was being rented out. I haven't even seen the car in person, right?
That's
So,
amazing.
that's basically how it works. I kind of like that model even better than real estate because there's more competition in real estate at the end of the
Yeah.
day. Everybody's starting to get into real estate. So we started moving into exotic cars. That's one thing, but we've taken it a step further.
Okay.
There's nobody in the market that is doing private jet automation. And that's what we're
Okay.
doing. So we buy jets and we charter them out. So same thing as the exotic car. Obviously, the numbers are higher, but there's really cool benefits with that because with private jets, think about jets versus cars. Who's renting these cars? Probably some kid who wants to whip it around town and hit
Right.
potholes and stuff
People
like
having
that.
fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But with private jets, we have licensed pilots that trained to fly this exact specification jet before they ever got into the cockpit. So this is a very, very professional experience. You have a different clientele. These people are paying 20, 30, $40,000 for a couple hours in your airplane,
Hmm.
and they're taking a lot better care of it than somebody who's just driving your car crazy around town. So totally different, but we've
Hmm.
taken out a lot of the risk and we're making more money on that. So yeah, it's like real estate, but in the air.
That's unbelievable. I want to get back to the Jets in a second. I want to put a bow on the car thing.
Yeah,
So
yeah, sorry.
no. I love it. This is amazing. I think that's a brilliant strategy. So you're buying an exotic car. Let's say I buy an exotic car.
Yeah.
Then I contact Austin and his team. You've got the network of dealers all over the place that are already renting these cars.
Well, before you buy the car, I would send you to the person that can get you financed no matter what.
Okay.
Because some people have never owned an exotic car before, and it's hard to get financed if you haven't. But my finance team can get anybody financed.
Got
And
it.
so that's the first step. They tell you exactly which car to get, they get you financed, and then you have the choice of which vendor you want to use. You want your car to be up in New York or LA or Miami or Seattle or Texas? Where do you want your car, right?
Right.
So it all depends on that as well, and that also dictates what car you're getting
Okay.
because maybe they have 10 Lambos
Right. They
in
whatever
Houston
fits
already.
their inventory.
Exactly,
And to
and
be
what's good
honest,
for
I
'em.
don't really care because I'm just trying to get in on the income stream.
Exactly.
Yeah. So okay, so let me break it down one more time. So I contact Austin and his team.
Yeah.
You help me get financed. You help me get in contact with the vendor. Let's say I want to be in Las Vegas or whatever
Yep.
or LA. Um, and then we're gonna say, okay, I already have I need a Bugatti. So I'm gonna buy a Bugatti and
Yeah.
then I'm paying the monthly payments, car's in my name, but I'm sending it to this experienced car rental lot, dealership, whatever we call it.
Yeah.
Then they're doing all the day to day. They're renting it out, they're cleaning it, they're making sure it doesn't disappear, they're handling any damage to it and all of that. And then we're 50-50 partners on that deal.
Depending on the vendor, some of them have different options. Some
Okay.
will do like 55-45 or, different variations of it, but for the most part, you're splitting profits at some level. Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah, that's amazing. And
Yeah.
then I guess last question on the cars is obviously depreciation is a big deal with cars and
Mhm.
our mileage and whatnot. So how long can you run that before it's time to get a new car or swap that one out?
Yeah, so that depends on the car model that you're getting. So, first of all, back to the depreciation, I think that's two separate questions. So, depreciation works very different with exotic cars because at the beginning, the first maybe 5 years, it just totally tanks, just like
Yeah.
any car.
Right.
However, after that, it tends to just sit and like level out at a certain point. And that point is in the industry, people call it like bottom cash value for that car.
Okay.
So for in general terms, you're not going to find a car for less than that much. Like for example, right now, I couldn't buy a Lamborghini Huracan for less than like 210, 220,000. That's
Okay.
bottom cash value right now. So the cheapest one that I could find is at that price point. So what if I buy one that's in decent condition at or near that price point?
Okay.
Well, chances are it's not going to depreciate much further. It's already leveled out for the past few years.
Okay.
And so even if I use the car for a year or 2 years, maybe I'll lose 10K on it, but I'm making that every month.
Wow.
So I'm fine with that, right?
Unbelievable.
So for the most part, like Lamborghinis are built very, very well. Huracans especially, they could run 100,000 miles. Ferraris a little bit sketchy. I'd get out before 50K miles. So you
Okay.
could buy one with like 20,000, run it up to 50,000 and just sell it.
Right.
And again, you're probably going to get at or near what you bought it for. So you're kind of getting out at break even on the car. However, in the past few years, I've had people literally make money on these cars.
Yeah, I was just gonna
The
say that as some of those models actually go up
Yeah.
in value over time.
Oh, yeah. After they level out, less and less of that car becomes available on the market. Maybe they made 1,000 Huracans at the beginning. Now there's only 600 of them left. Well, now there's more demand.
Yeah.
Demand stayed the same. People still want this car, but there's less supply. So
Mm.
naturally, it's going to go up in value. So people are literally making money on these cars after driving them for like 20, 30, 40,000 miles. So,
Amazing.
yeah,
And then the idea at the end would be you just sell it and roll into a new one
exactly. Yep.
and
Yeah. And you
repeat.
can usually just trade it in for a decent value at dealerships. And what was your second question?
That was the main one is depreciation and just kind of how long you can do that with a car before it's time to exit and get a new
Yeah,
car.
how long? I'd say a year to 2 years, just kinda depending on the car. If you get, like, a Rolls Royce, that's basically a BMW 7 Series, like, that thing is probably not gonna break,
Right.
it's like
Yeah.
but if you get, like, a Lamborghini Aventador, well, that's a little sketchy,
Yeah.
So, it depends on the model, I'd say. Ferraris are a little sketchy, McLarens are sketchy, but for the most part, if you choose the right models, you should be okay for a year to 2 years. But if you're under 50K, I'd say your risks are very, very low.
Right.
So,
So most of the cars that your people are buying are not new.
oh no, definitely not.
They're at that 5-year bottom cash value mark.
Yeah. Yep,
And that way they're protected, their downside's protected, and they can make the money every month and
exactly. And the best part about it is that sometimes people don't realize that they're literally paying off their car. That money that they're making on payments is not going anywhere.
right.
They put a down payment on the car and then they're building equity in it.
Yeah, it's a good point.
And
You're
then at
paying
the
it
end,
off every month already.
yeah, and then you just sell it and you get all that money back. Like it doesn't go anywhere.
Right.
It's just like a piggy bank.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
It's really brilliant strategy. I love everything about it. Um, uh, Now let's transition to jets. Obviously, much more expensive, but is the model the same? Is it basically like contact Austin and his team, get the financing? Um, how much is that going to be? What kind of jets are people looking for? And then is that more of like a I'm guessing that's less of a I'm renting it to fly it. I'm more renting it to travel and I'm hiring pilots and all that sort of thing.
Yeah, so I'd say the first step is to definitely contact me because you have to know which jet specifically to buy.
Mhm.
So I don't do the advising on that part. We have a charter company that we work with, a jet charter company, just
Okay.
like with the exotic car rentals.
Okay.
And so they know what the market is like. And based on the investor's budget, they will help you choose the right jet. However, what we've been doing is like syndications for these jets.
Okay.
So not everybody has 600, 700,000. I'd say that's kind of the minimum to get into a jet,
Okay.
up to like 1 million on a very small jet. But not everybody has that available. So
So you
what
put
if we
like
just
10
bring
people
10
together or
people
something like
together that
that?
put in 100,000 and now all of a sudden everybody's in on this jet, they're part owners of the jet and they're splitting the profits. And they tend to do, I'd say 30 to 70% net cash flow, depending on the jet, depending on how much it's actually used, but you're also paying off the jet. Right. So again, just like the cars, you're
Right.
building equity in it. Your money doesn't go anywhere.
Mhm.
It's just parked in this asset, protected against inflation, and you're cash flowing. It's beautiful.
That is beautiful.
Yeah.
I love it. That's really creative, man. I'm very impressed by these little passive income models. Um, so let's keep going. There's a couple more that you've mentioned. Did I hear you say watches?
Yeah, so yeah, it's kind of interesting. We have a guy that literally trades luxury watches for us. So
Okay.
he's a watch trader
Okay.
and he tends to do 20 to 30, sometimes 40% a month just trading watches. And so
Okay.
basically, again, it's like a syndication. We provide the funds to buy these watches, and on our behalf, he buys the watch, he flips it, right, for a profit. He buys it off market, sells it retail, and we split the profits with him.
Mm.
So again, just like I'd say the closest thing is probably like the exotic car rentals where somebody's running it for you. But for the most part, he's the expert there. We don't have any involvement. We're just
Okay.
kind of funding
So
the
that's
deals.
less of like it's not really a watch rental type of situation. It's
Yeah,
more he's flipping these watches, he's
exactly.
buying them low, selling them higher, and there's
Yeah,
a some sort of rev share between you and him.
exactly. Yep.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so if people want to, and that's like a really safe one because you're getting in on these deals so cheap. Like there's basically no downside. You could almost guarantee that you're gonna like make some sort of profit.
Mm,
Like I don't want to say guarantee, it's a very
yeah.
dangerous word,
Right.
but Like for the most part, if you're buying these off market from a wholesaler, you're buying them specifically at a target purchase price, which is way below what it
Retail.
sells retail.
Yeah.
So even if you're like dead wrong, you're still gonna make some sort of profit. Like
Yeah.
it's very hard not to at that point, unless you had to sell it like same day or something, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
So
That's very cool. Um, so another thing I heard you say a couple times is oil wells.
yeah,
Um, I personally know absolutely nothing about oil wells. So
me
how
neither.
does
No,
how
just
does
kidding.
that strategy work?
Yeah, so you basically it's like fractional ownership. It's kind of like the jet, you know, you
Okay.
invest a certain amount and you own a part of an oil well that is to be drilled. And so that one is also super easy to get into. It's like 10K minimum, and
Okay.
you own a percentage of this oil well that's down in Texas. So we have a company that operates that whole thing for us. All the drilling, all the maintenance, selling the oil to refineries, like that whole process they've got on lock. And I'm actually going to go down in about 2 weeks to go check on my oil wells, shoot some content, check on my wells. But yeah, they're near San Antonio, Texas.
Okay.
And they basically have like a, I don't know, somehow they got access to a plot of land where there's oil.
Okay.
So they've got a ton of wells there. They have over 50 wells. So you
So
just,
are these wells that are already producing oil, or are these
yeah.
we're trying to find oil in the ground type
No, we know
scenarios?
there's oil in the ground and there's already wells producing,
Okay.
but at a certain point, these wells can only draw a certain amount of oil,
Got
right?
it.
So maybe 1,000 feet,
Okay.
and that's it, and they can't reach anymore. So
Okay.
okay, you just go another 1,000 feet over and you drill another one.
I got it.
So we know there's oil there; it's already producing.
Got it.
Now we're just putting more wells, stacking more wells in that plot of land. And so, in order for investors to take part in that, they basically invest before the well is drilled. They
Okay.
finance the deal, right? This whole deal is financed by investors. They drill the well and then it starts producing, and then they sell these barrels of oil to the refineries. And
Okay.
so I'd say, generally speaking, you could expect these to do maybe 7 to 12% a month, these oil wells.
A month.
A month, yeah.
Wow.
The only problem is that it's not compounding. So,
Right.
like, yeah, there's some investments that are compounding, like Forex and stuff like that, but this isn't compounding. It's just on your 10K, you might make like 700, $900 a month.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, $700 on 10K is pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Most people are buying houses for hundreds of thousands of dollars and hoping to get 700 to $900 a month.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Well, these are alternative strategies, you know?
Sure. Sure.
So very, very niche. And of course, there's always a risk that, hey, you could not find oil. We've
Right.
only, you know, out of all 50 wells that they have, they've only had that happen once. But, you know, that's why you diversify. So instead of putting $100,000 into one well, why don't you put 10K into 10
Into
different
10
wells?
wells.
Because you don't know which one is going to produce 2 grand a month, and you
Right.
don't know which one's going to produce zero.
Right.
So if I'm in all of them,
And how many of those are like available to invest in?
I'd say at any given time, there's 5 to 10 that are to be drilled,
Okay.
and so you can invest into multiple, of course.
And how much money are they raising to do the operation? I mean, your 10K, I'm guessing, is probably like 0.01% or something like
Yeah,
that.
it's a very small percentage. Yeah, I'd say, you know, I don't know the exact numbers, but as far as I understand, each well is between 700K and like 1.2 million. So
Okay.
depending on what exactly they have to do, how big it's going to be, all the operational costs, it's somewhere within that ballpark. It's nothing massive. It's not those massive rigs out in the Gulf of Mexico.
Sure. Yeah.
It's a pretty small well, but it's still producing.
It's more of like the pump kind that
Exactly.
there's no ongoing like labor costs. Maybe you got to fix something here and there, but
Yeah,
it just works on its own and pumps oil out of the ground.
exactly. And the company takes part ownership of these wells as well.
Right.
So they're incentivized to obviously operate that, but they're just hedging their risk by taking on investors for a certain percentage.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, these are very cool. These are these are fascinating strategies. Um, so let me run through a couple more. So we got the Forex bot. Obviously, trading bots have good and terrible reputations. So I'm curious as to kind of how it works and then um success rate and how that is like forecasted out into the future. Obviously, can't guarantee anything, and
Yeah.
we wouldn't ask you to, but just kind of how that works.
Yeah, so it's, again, it's a passive income stream, so it's meant to be 100% automated for the investor. So just like I started in my career and I wanted to build this passive income stream through Forex, I'm giving that opportunity to clients as well. So I'm like,
Okay.
hey, instead, I'm not a fund or anything like that at this point. I may move that direction in the future, but right now it's kind of like a decentralized fund.
Okay.
So if people want to make hedge fund like returns, all they have to do is invest into a Forex account.
Okay.
They deposit some money into a brokerage account. They can connect my software. Well, actually, we connect it on our end. And we make sure that it's just running for them 24/5. Markets open 24 hours a day, 5 days a week. So this software does all the analysis. It opens trades, it closes trades, it does literally everything for them. It's like a white glove experience, right? And
Okay.
they just watch on their phone. They have an app on their phone where they log into their trading account and they can see every single thing that happens. And I love that transparency about it because hedge funds is kind of like a black box. You put money in there and then you get
Yeah.
your statements every month. Here you can see every single trade and track it by the second if you wanted to. Well, you can withdraw at any time. There's no lock-ins or anything like that. But, it has been doing about 5 to 10% a month, sometimes 15% a month, just depending on how that month went. Recently I think we did like 17%, just recently on the software. But, you know, the thing with that is you have to understand that it's a higher risk investment,
Sure.
right? As opposed to like an exotic car where we own a physical asset or a private jet where we literally just park our money in this asset. Here, you're putting money into a brokerage account and it is exposed to the market. And so, of course, if you run your software too aggressive, there is risk that you could potentially lose,
Mm,
right? So we have different settings. We have more conservative settings, we have moderate settings, we have aggressive settings. So everybody has their own strategy.
got
Some
it.
people want to just deposit into an account and just let it grow. They're fine with 3, 4% a month, and I don't have to have any
Yeah.
worry in the world. Right. That's still outperforming every single
Right.
hedge fund in the world. So, it's still a great opportunity, but some people are like, "Oh, you know what? Actually, I'm just gonna go really aggressive and I'm gonna do 15 to 20% a month, but I'm gonna withdraw my profits every month
Okay.
into a separate account and run that one at 3% a month."
Okay.
So
I like that.
they're stacking these accounts in such a way where they're still benefiting from the high returns. And if anything happens to that account, they're okay because they're withdrawing profits every month,
Mhm.
right? And then they're protecting them in this calmer account. And then, of course, we help people stack these accounts in such a way that meets their needs and gets them to that six figures in passive income as fast as possible.
Mhm.
So in my program, that's the main point, is to get these people to six figures at minimum in passive income. And of course, when you set a system like this up, it doesn't just do it once. It's not like, okay, you made $100,000, you're done, that's it. No,
Mhm.
it's like we built out this whole system for them that produces six figures, right? And so what happens with investments, generally speaking, they continue to produce more and more and more. So maybe you made 200,000 this year. Well, if you just literally didn't touch anything, you're probably going to make more money
Let it
next year.
keep scaling up.
Yeah, we're
Yeah.
building a whole machine for people that produces over and over and over again. It's not just a one-time thing. So I love consistency and longevity. I want to be the last man standing in the market. If
Mhm.
we have an economic downturn or a recession, I don't want to be the guy that loses. I want to be the guy that's still making money consistently.
That
So
was gonna be my next question is how does it perform in good markets versus bad markets and everything in between?
yeah, so because we trade forex, it's not stocks, right?
Got it.
Stocks
It's
do not
currencies.
affect it. Yeah,
Okay.
like generally speaking, they may move a little bit because of it, but it's not the same. Like the stock market recently saw a big downturn, right? The forex market didn't.
Hmm.
It's just, it moved in its own way,
Mm.
but it's separate. It's not correlated to how the stock market moves. So no matter how the market is moving, currencies are always going to be a ratio, and that's why I like it, because a stock can go to zero, but a currency, it's probably not going to go to zero because it's a ratio. I'm
Mhm.
trading euros to US dollars. So it's always going to be some sort of floating number.
Right.
It doesn't just crash down to zero because, whatever. But
That's amazing. So let me let me break this one down. So I open an account, a Forex account
a
at
brokerage account.
like a Schwab or any of those types, or who do you recommend for
Yeah,
brokerage
I
accounts?
can't technically recommend a
Or
brokerage.
give me like 3 that are well known.
Yeah, so three that are well known in our community are Coinex, LMFX, and LQDFX.
Okay, so
So
I open one of those.
yeah, and there's a little caveat there. It can't be a United States brokerage because United States brokerages do not allow you to hedge, which means buy and sell at the same time.
Got it.
And that's what the software does. Not all the time, but sometimes.
Got it.
And so it needs that ability in order to be able to get itself out of position. So in reality, people can use any brokerage that is not in the US. It just has to have a certain type of account, which is called an ECN account,
Got it.
which allows for more instant execution and lower spreads. And they have to have a high enough leverage in that account to be able to trade. So those are two issues with US brokers. They don't allow you to hedge and they
Okay.
limit your leverage to 1 to 50.
But as a US citizen, you can still use those
Oh
out
yeah.
of this country
Oh yeah, yeah.
exchanges or brokerage accounts. Okay, so
Absolutely.
I open one of those out of the United States brokerage accounts. I'm guessing I fund it with whatever 1,000, 10,000, 100,000, whatever you want to put in there.
Yep, our minimum is 50K.
50K. So we put the 50K in there, and then I'm contacting you to, and then how does the software work? Is that a monthly fee or is there a rev share or how does that work?
Yeah, so we connect it on the back end for you. It's
Okay.
fully automated by my team. And then every month on the first of the month, you get invoiced for half of the profits.
Okay.
So we do a 50-50 profit split every month. So it's
Okay.
kind of like a subscription. We're not like managing your account or trading it or anything. The software is doing all that.
Yeah.
But we do a profit split every month.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a good for you and good for them.
Everybody wins.
Yeah. No, that's cool. And then how many trades are happening? Like I like that you can get the app, you can watch what's happening in real time. And you said, which I think is really important, that you can withdraw anytime,
Yep.
you can shut it down anytime, you can any of those types of things.
Yeah, you could shut it down at any time. There are ways to do it yourself, but realistically, you wouldn't want to shut it down because you want the software to be able to manage you out of those trades. So,
Okay.
yeah, you can withdraw at any time. General rule of thumb, what I say is if you're going to withdraw more than 10% of the account, just let me know so I can make the software run more conservatively
Got it.
so that you're not just automatically increasing the
Got it.
risk.
So it's not really like a shutdown, it's more of like a wind down if you
Yeah.
wanted to completely get out for
Yeah,
whatever reason.
exactly. Yeah, yeah. So we wind it down slowly to make sure that you're not losing, and protecting your account. But I'd say it does on average maybe 50 to 100 trades per day.
Wow.
Yeah, it's not like massive trades.
Yeah.
It just stacks smaller trades
Yeah.
on top of each other, to make the most profit possible.
That's brilliant. And has there ever been a losing month?
So on conservative accounts, no. So for the
Okay.
people that run aggressively, yes, there have been some situations where the
Right.
market just really moved
Right.
unpredictably,
Yeah.
and some people lost. But for the most part, conservative accounts, there's never been a losing month.
That's incredible. I mean, that's almost unbelievable, but I'm good for you. All right, so Forex bots, that's really cool. I definitely am interested in learning more about that. Um, all right, two more that I heard you talk about. Amazon stores and Bitcoin mining. Let's maybe start with Amazon, maybe under the e-com bubble, but I'm sure
Yeah,
Amazon and Walmart are probably a big part of that, but
yeah.
kind of break that passive income strategy down.
Oh man, there's so many different variations of it. You know, you have drop shipping, you have models where you're holding physical inventory. So, of course, it's different, right? But
Right,
typically, what you do is you pay somebody to set up a store for you. And whether they're drop shipping or they're holding inventory, that kind of dictates like, do I need to have more capital up front to buy inventory? Or am I just buying things as they're sold?
right,
And obviously, it's easier to set up a drop shipping store because you're only spending money on inventory once somebody's already paid you.
right,
So it's very, very safe, but it's very difficult to do on Amazon and Walmart. So traditionally, what people have done on there is like, let's say I'm selling something on Amazon and you go on my listing and you buy something. And then as soon as you buy it, let's say you paid 20 bucks for it. I have a team that automatically or not automatically, but instantly turns around and goes to, let's say, target.com, buys that thing for $12 and ships it directly to you. Well, of course, the model works great until you get some people who are like, wait a minute, I bought on Amazon. Why did I get a Target box?
yeah,
And then they start complaining. And
right,
so if you get, I believe it's 3 complaints, they shut down your account.
okay,
Yeah, so, people are getting accounts suspended, they're getting massive payouts held up. I know people who have, like, $250,000 held up in Amazon because their account got suspended. And
ouch,
so how do you pay off your cards, right? So then they have these charge cards with Amex, like, massive balances that they can't pay down. So,
Mm-hmm.
anyways, so that's one of the issues with some of these models. However, we have really, really progressed in the e-commerce space. And right now, what's super hot is Shopify stores.
Okay.
Shopify is way less regulated than Amazon and Walmart, and they do amazing for drop shipping stores. So
Okay.
we've really, really been cranking these drop shipping stores on Shopify where you pay a setup fee. It's usually about 50, 60K. They
Okay.
set up the store for you. They source a product for you. They find a great product and then they market it on social media. So a lot of times what they'll do is they'll find TikTok influencers and they'll have them just create a super viral video of your product with a link. And then they just go to your Shopify store and buy it. And it's amazing how fast you can scale these stores.
Mm.
It's not unusual for these stores to do multiple six figures within their first year. But the cool thing with Shopify is that it's your own brand. With Amazon, think of it as like a strip mall. Amazon, you're just one of the little cubicles, right?
Yeah.
But with Shopify, you're your own brand.
Mm-hmm.
You're, whatever company, and you can sell that as a company. So based on your
Ah.
performance, you can sell it for a multiple of your gross sales. Usually within your first year, I'd say a 0.5 multiple. So if you sold like, let's say $300,000, you split the profits with the people who ran it for you,
Mm-hmm.
let's say 50-50. So you kept your $150,000 and then you sold it for another $150,000
Mm-hmm.
because that's what you did. So
Mm-hmm.
another 75K that you're pocketing. So over $200,000 in your first year just because they found a good product, they marketed it correctly, and they scaled your store for you. And they win and you win.
So is that when you say scale the store, they're not doing like paid ads. They're doing
They're
all
doing paid ads.
they are doing paid
But
ads.
it's not what you're thinking of. It's not Facebook ads, it's not Google ads. They're paying influencers to post about
Okay.
you.
Okay. So influencer marketing and who pays for that? Is that they pay for that or am I
No,
paying for that as the owner of the store?
you're paying for that. So
Okay.
they budget about $1,500 a month for that.
Okay.
Yep.
So you put the 50 up front for all the setup and getting the product and
Yep,
getting the store set up and all of that.
exactly.
And then 1,500 a month for continued influencer ads. And then how many products are on those stores? Is it one or two, or is it like a plethora?
No, it's usually just a few because you want to build a brand that's like a niche brand. So,
Got it.
totally random example, but let's say you have like glow in the dark workout pants or
Okay.
something. Well, you might also have like workout shirts and
Sure.
gloves
Okay.
and maybe like compression shorts or something.
Got
So,
it.
um, it wouldn't really make sense to add a bunch of stuff on there, maybe like a water bottle or
Got it.
something, but you don't want to add like, I don't know, swimwear or something.
Or soccer balls or
Or
whatever.
soccer balls.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like it doesn't really make sense. You want to keep it a niche store because that's what's going to allow you to sell it. Because now all these people have bought your
Mhm.
workout gear and they trust you at least to a certain
Right.
degree if the product quality was good. So somebody can buy that and retarget all those people. They get all that customer data and
Yep.
they can retarget them with, hey, we just launched our second series of glow in the dark pants. You
Yep.
liked our first ones? Well, these have an extra pocket.
Yeah.
Buy these ones.
Yeah,
you know
exactly.
so it's very easy to like just spin that up and keep growing it. So some people just buy aged stores. But if you really just wanted to build one from scratch, the model is 50K, 50 to 60K. It's set up for you. They source the product, right? They make sure that it's good and then they market it on social media.
Mhm.
And then from there, they just keep growing it and growing it and growing it,
Yeah.
and then you sell it. So some people want to sell it after 1 year. Some people want to sell it after 2 years, because after 2 years, you all of a sudden have the opportunity for people to finance your store. Because guess what? People who loan to businesses and
Mm,
entrepreneurs,
very
once they see a
interesting.
2-year track
2-year
record,
track record.
they're
Yeah.
like, oh, you know what? We'll finance you.
Wow.
Oh, it's $1 million for that store. Here you go. We see the track record.
That's unbelievable. And what sort of success rate are you seeing on those stores in terms of like if you've seen 100 stores get sold, how many are killing it versus how many are not making money, or any kind of thoughts on that?
Yeah. Well, obviously, every store is in a different stage. Some have been around for a while, some have been
Hmm.
around for a shorter amount of time. But what I will say is that every store so far has made revenue, and that's good. And they also, the vendors that do this, obviously, I don't run them, but the vendors that do operate this, they have a guarantee in the contract that within a certain amount of time, you will at least make your initial investment back, or they'll cover the difference for you. So you have no
Oh,
downside.
wow.
So you either make multiple six figures or you don't lose anything.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
And we
very
specifically look
attractive.
for yeah, we specifically look for investments like that because your downside is covered, your risk is managed.
Mhm.
What I've found is that with investments and with investing and the market in general, the only thing that you can control is your risk. So what am I willing to lose here? The upside is always unlimited, but what am I willing to lose? So if I can control my downside, the upside, generally speaking, is going to work out. Maybe not on every single one of my investments,
Right.
but 60, 70, maybe 80% of my investments will work out. And to speak to that, actually, what I've done with my program, based on my own experience, I've found which 60% of investments worked
Mm.
and which 40% didn't. So I
Mhm.
cut out the 40%. I took the 60% of winners and I only put those that truly worked into my program.
Got it.
And my hope is that that's going to increase people's profitability from
Mhm.
60%, hopefully to 100%, right? Or really close to it.
Right.
So,
No, that's great. I love it. I mean, these are some amazing strategies. Um, oh yeah, so one more, last one was Bitcoin mining.
yeah.
Obviously the cryptocurrency market is taking a nosedive, but talk to me about mining and how that side of things works.
Yeah, so I've been a part of a couple different models as far as mining. I've done the whole own your own miners and host them at our co-location space or co-hosting location space, and it's fine, but we have a really cool model right now, a vendor out in New Jersey. So their facilities in New Jersey. And basically they have all the equipment already purchased. So what that means is that you can buy their minimum package is, I believe, like 17K or so. It's a
Okay.
100 terahash miner
Okay.
and you get that miner for 4 years, which there's some benefits that you still get all the tax benefits for buying mining equipment. It's business equipment write off. However, you don't have to worry about buying it and then shipping it to them and then waiting until they set it up and waiting until it's online. And then guess what? After it's out of date, you have to sell it.
Mm-hmm.
That's so annoying. That's the old model. That's I've done that and it's cool, but it's not as good as this.
Okay.
This is instant execution. You're instantly online. If I wire money today, I'm making money today.
So they have the equipment already set
It's
up.
already set up. Yeah.
Okay.
And so I get access to that miner for 4 years. It's like a leasing model. It's kind of like real estate, Airbnb
Right.
arbitrage, but it's Bitcoin mining arbitrage.
Okay.
So I'm buying a 4 year lease on this.
Mhm.
I get to use it for 4 years. It's the most recent miners. It has liquid immersion cooling. So it's like running really
Yeah.
nicely, really efficiently. I'm making a lot of money on these miners. And after 4 years, guess what? I just get the newer ones. So
Yeah.
I stay efficient.
Yep.
So I'm never having to get rid of my old equipment and stuff like that. So there's a few moving parts in Bitcoin mining. Number one is getting access to miners in an efficient time frame, right? A lot of times there's a big wait for them.
Yeah, they're sold
6 months,
out, this and
8
that.
months, yeah,
Right.
that's very normal. However, if you have instant online, the ability to go online instantly, that's amazing. Number two is the cost of electricity.
Mm-hmm.
And then number three is cooling.
Cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so making sure that they're cool and stuff like that. So the way I see it is Bitcoin mining is an amazing opportunity no matter how the market looks. Because guess what? Do we think I have this rule, I call it my 10-year rule. If I think something is going to do better than
Yeah.
it's doing today in 10 years, I'm going to invest in it
Right.
or it's a good investment for me.
Mm-hmm.
So if I think that Bitcoin, where it is today, I think like 20,000 or 25,000, if in 10 years, do I think it's going to be higher or lower? I personally think it's going to be higher than 25K.
Yeah.
So if I
I would
buy a
agree.
Bitcoin miner right now, guess what? I'm not getting paid out US dollars. I'm getting paid out in Bitcoin.
Right.
So whatever I'm making in Bitcoin, I can just multiply that times the value that I think it's going to be, maybe even in a year or two or
Mm-hmm.
in 5 years, if it reaches 100K,
Mm-hmm.
well, I'm making four times what I'm
Yeah.
making right now.
Yeah.
I just don't cash it out until later. So I see it as a long-term play, and I'd say it's profitable no matter what the market is doing. It's a really great opportunity as long as you have access to equipment, access to proper cooling and efficiency, and then on top of that, electricity costs.
Yeah.
That's the only thing that can really price you out.
Yeah. Because they're
Electricity costs.
loud and they're hot.
They're loud and they're hot. Yeah.
And they suck a lot of power.
Yeah.
Um, so how does that particular program work? I send the your team, the vendor, the 17,000. sounds like I'm up and running right away.
right away.
And then I'm getting paid in Bitcoin monthly distributions or something like that, or how does that work?
Yeah, you're getting paid in Bitcoin. So there is actually a really cool tracking dashboard. It's like a portal that you log into, and it tells you exactly what's going on with your miners.
Okay.
How many miners you got running, how much Bitcoin you have like loading in that wallet, and as soon as you reach zero point 0.1 Bitcoin, it pays you out. So,
Okay.
yeah,
0.1. Okay.
yeah.
So,
So,
yeah, not
exactly.
a lot.
Yeah, not a lot. No, no, no. As soon as it reaches
Every
that
couple
payout amount,
grand you get kicked out.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So it depends on, how long it takes you to reach that, whether it's a month or multiple months, or if you have a 500 terahash miner, it could be much shorter than that.
Right.
So,
And then at the 4-year mark, then what happens? Is it they just shut it down and I got to send another 17K, or how does that work?
yep, exactly. So you
Yeah.
have the lease for 4 years. After that, it's terminated, and you could either buy another one or, do whatever else you want to do with
Yeah.
your money.
Very cool. So, all right. So we've broken down a lot of passive income strategies, a lot of some I've never even heard of. And I love these strategies. Out of everything we've covered, what are your one or two favorites?
The Forex software has always been a favorite of mine. It's always been a core of my business, and that's how I've built my entire lifestyle. So that's always going to be my baby.
Okay.
I usually keep about 50% of my net worth in the software at all times because
Wow.
it's the most
That says
simple
a
one.
lot.
It's the most simple one.
Yeah.
I just check my phone every morning. I'm like, oh, great. I made so and so percent last
Mhm.
night. Great. I
Okay.
didn't do anything for it. It just automatically made itself. So I trust in the software greatly. And there's ways to make it even more interesting where I can use investor capital. Like there's firms out there that will give you capital to trade with.
Okay.
And so we're trading these massive accounts with the software, but that's a whole different story. So
Okay.
the software, I'd say. And then the second one is the exotic car rentals and similar investments to that. So like the jet, we're also working on getting a yacht. We're going to be chartering it out.
Okay.
Holding these physical assets because number one, I'm protecting myself against inflation, but number two, I'm cash flowing on top of that, and I get to be an owner of a yacht.
Yeah.
What's better than
It
that?
sounds like they cash flow like crazy too, which
Oh
is
yeah,
just insane.
and that's because they're not mainstream. So
Mhm.
if a bunch of people start doing them, of course, the returns are going to deteriorate.
Right.
But right now, oh man.
Have you looked at like RVs or campers or any of that kind of stuff, or is that a little too
No, I haven't. Well, that's because I don't know anybody who
the
operates that.
vendors?
Yeah,
Yeah.
as I don't wanna do it myself.
Right. Yeah. So
So
one thing that I've heard over and over and over again, which I'm very curious about, is that I don't do it myself.
yep.
And it sounds like you have a lot of vendors, partners, affiliates, and all that. So how did you go about setting all that up? All
Yeah,
these
so
relationships in different places and all that. It sounds like you're really good at that.
Yeah, so for me, it's always been a matter of I don't want this to take up all my time because if I'm invested in 30 or 40 different things, there's no way I'd have enough time to manage it,
Exactly.
you
Yeah.
know? And on top of that, I know a lot of people are like, "Oh, well, I could just do it myself." Well, that's great, but are you going to be as good as the guy who's been doing this for 7 years and
Right.
this is literally his livelihood if he
Yeah.
doesn't perform he doesn't make money? Probably not.
Right.
You're probably trying to do 2 or 3 things, and it's just a side thing for you. There's no way you're gonna be as profitable or as good as this guy. So even if you're splitting profits with him, you're gonna make more money. So that's one thing. The other side of it for me is just attending masterminds and events,
Right.
and getting to know these people. And a lot of these have come from actually just performing for clients. So they invest, they make a
Then they
lot of
tell
money,
their friends.
they tell their friends, and then they also potentially know somebody who also runs another investment.
Right.
And so I'll go in, I'll invest with them. I usually almost always invest first and I test out the investment and see if I'm making money myself before it
Mhm.
ever makes it into the program. If I don't do it personally, I know somebody personally who is currently making money with that investment.
Yeah.
Because again, we're weeding out all the non-performing investments because I don't want to put my clients and my students at that risk. That's what they're paying to be in the program for. They're
Mhm.
paying to be in the program to number one, get the education, number two, get access to my vendors that are operating each one of these investments.
Okay.
But number three is also to minimize their risk of potentially losing because you can go out there and you can try investing into all these things that I just mentioned,
Right.
but are you going to choose the vendors that I'm using? Chances are no,
Mhm.
because there's a lot of people doing Walmart stores and 90% of them aren't performing. That's just the fact.
Right.
So,
Yeah. That's for sure. So, okay, so one thing I also keep hearing you say is the program. And my next question was going to be how do people, because I'm sure everyone's brain is spinning as much as mine is, and how can people get involved? How do people get a hold of you, or how does it all work?
Yeah, so actually, I use my Instagram kind of as my landing page. Of course, I have a website and multiple websites, but most of the information is like a live feed to Instagram. So
Okay.
I'm on Instagram, Austin Zelan, on Instagram, and I have a lot of like highlights from student results and kind of what they're seeing and the different investments that I do. I usually post a lot about these different investments, and I share
Okay.
about like, hey, we're working on real estate right now, or we're working on oil wells. And like when I go down to see my oil wells, I'll be not blogging, but like posting all about it on Instagram. Mostly just documenting like, hey, this is what it looks like.
Sure.
This is
Right.
here's one of my wells. Here's another of
Here's
my
what it
wells.
looks like in real life. It's
Yeah.
actually there. It's
Yeah, yeah.
actually pumping.
Exactly. Yeah. And people love to see that, you know?
Yeah.
So I kind of treat that as my like landing page, and that's the easiest way to connect with me. And just shooting me a DM. It's my program is called Six Figure Mentorship.
Okay.
So, three-phase program. Number one, we're getting people access to capital, access to investor capital at 0% interest. Number two, they're learning about all these different investments. So every week we do a call where I do a deep dive on these investments.
Okay.
And sometimes I do like Q&A and like market outlooks and stuff like that. But for the most part, they're attending these to learn about these investments. It's like usually an hour long where I just do a super deep dive, like all the pros, all the cons. Here's the results I'm seeing. Here's what we can expect for the next 10 years,
Mhm.
right? And then they decide like, okay, I want to be part of this one and that one. And they just kind of build their own portfolio. And then in phase three, I help them scale that to six figures. So I guarantee that before they leave the program, they will be creating at least six figures in passive income. So it's about $8,300 a month. So that's kind of
That's
the end goal of
amazing.
the program. But yeah, I'd say Instagram is the easiest way.
And then, is there a cost on that, or are you a rev share partner, or how does the six-figure mentorship work in
Yeah,
terms
there's
of
a
that?
cost.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's 40K
Okay.
currently for 12 months. So they
Okay.
get 12 months of mentorship, and that comes with a guarantee of six figures before they exit.
That's amazing. And so they pay the 40K, then they're opened up to all the vendors and everything that we've talked about,
Yep.
and then they can pick and choose what they like.
Yep.
Once they say, "Oh, I really like the exotic car thing or the Bitcoin mining thing or whatever it is," at that point, they're contacting your team to further the conversation or direct it to the vendors.
Yeah, exactly. So they'll contact me or the program manager, somebody that will connect them personally to these vendors.
Mhm.
So that way we always have a warm introduction,
Okay.
right? They know exactly where they're coming from and they know exactly what to expect
Okay.
because we've built out these relationships. I spend multiple six figures a year maintaining and developing these relationships. That's
Right.
my job.
Right.
My job is to be buddies with all these people so that when my students come and approach them like, "Hey, I wanna get an oil well." They know exactly where they're coming from. They already have a good relationship with me, and they know the caliber of people that are going into this program.
Right.
They're not like, "Oh, some sketchy dude just
Right.
messaging me." They're like, "Oh, it's one of Austin's guys
Right.
or one of Austin's girls." So they know exactly what to expect from us, and we know what to expect from them. And a lot of times, I negotiate better deals for my students. So, like, with the exotic cars, I get profit splits that nobody on this planet gets because we're coming in at such volume,
Mhm.
right? They
Right.
know how many students we have in our community, and
Right.
they're like, "Oh, like, we'll give them a better deal,"
Mm.
because they know that we're gonna consistently come to them. So
Amazing. No, that's really cool. Um, and then last part of it was the scaling up part. So, are you finding that most of your students are like picking one lane and staying in it and ramping up, or is it like, let me do a little of this, let me do a little of that, and kind of see where the chips fall?
yeah, so I would say it's very smart to have at least 7 streams, 7 different streams. Not everybody does that in the six-figure mentorship. There is like a private invite-only program after that where they get one-on-one mentorship with me, and that's where we
Got it.
really develop these 7 streams,
Mhm.
and that's called Millionaires Boardroom. So after six-figure mentorship, the people that I can see are taking it seriously
Right.
and are like actually investing into these things and are determined to produce more than just six figures, because six figures can be 100,000 or it
Yeah,
could be 800,000, right?
exactly. Yeah.
So the people that are like really trying to grow this, they'll get a private invitation to the one-on-one mentorship, which is one-on-one with me after that, Millionaires Boardroom. So in six-figure mentorship, I'd say people tend to do like 2 to 5 investments, maybe
Okay.
3 to 5 investments,
Hmm.
and they just kinda pick and choose the ones that they like,
Okay.
right? So, the reason that I can have that guarantee in there is because I have several investments that I'm 100% confident can make multiple 6 figures.
Mhm.
So, let's say somebody's on month 8 and they're like, "Oh, well, I still haven't hit my $8,300 a month." Great, we're gonna get you a Lambo, and we're gonna send it to New York, and you're gonna make $12,000 a month. There
Yeah.
you go.
Yeah. 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 No, that's really cool, man. Um, yeah, my head is spinning. I think this has been a brilliant conversation. I think what you've done is very impressive and very
Thank
cool.
you.
And I can see how you've connected all the dots, and I'm sure it's been a lot of work. Um, so how can people get a hold of you? You said Instagram is the best, at
Instagram is the
Austin
best.
Zealand.
Yep.
Just hit you up on there, slide in the DMs,
Slide in the DMs.
and go from there.
Let me know where you found me though, because that helps me kind of connect the dots a little bit on my end.
Awesome.
I do a lot of speaking and podcasts and stuff like that, so just knowing where these people came from will usually get you a faster response.
All right, cool. I got a couple questions to wrap, and then we can get on with our days. What one thing that I thought was interesting is that you talk about God a lot, not a lot, but more than I think a lot of people do, and I think that's really cool, and I commend you on that. And one of the things I saw you post a couple times was "Don't do business without God."
Mhm.
So what does that mean to you?
So I like to involve God in a lot of my business decisions. It's not like I feel like God is a partner to my business.
Mm,
I'm not trying to do business over here and then I have my relationship with God over here. It's one thing,
mm,
right? And so I find a lot of my investment decisions guided by God because I see him as a partner in my business,
mm,
a senior partner in my business, not just somebody that's in my business, but somebody who is very, very deeply involved. And so I find that a lot of these investments and investment ideas are, the way that they just come to me and some of these open doors that we get in business and in investing, I know they're supernatural. So
mm.
I really
Wow.
see God's involvement in my business and how he's opened specific doors for me and how he's blessed certain investments. We could be doing the same investment as somebody else and we'll just completely blow them out of the water.
Mm.
And I believe that that's God.
Cool. Yeah, because it seems to be a controversial topic these days. So I thought that was interesting. That's very cool. Um, Two questions to wrap with. In 60 seconds or less, tell me what it takes to be a successful passive income investor.
Number one, I'd say getting access to capital. So
Mhm.
if you don't have any access to capital, well, find somebody who can get you access. There's so many investors and banks and companies that are willing to fund your deals. And that's the first thing that we do with every investor. Number two, access to the right investments. So if you're just investing left and right into whatever you feel like, what are the chances of you being successful? Well, I thought I was a pretty good investment analyst and I was only about 60% successful.
Mhm.
Can you stomach that? What if your first four investments you lose? Are you going to
Mhm.
keep investing into the
Mhm.
other six or no? Right? So that's one thing is access to capital, access to investment opportunities, and then having somebody who can guide you along the way. I have found that the mentorships that I have been a part of in my life, like that I've hired people to mentor me, it's literally caused me to jump ahead in business like years. Like I literally cut years off of my business.
Yeah.
Sometimes in 1 week, my business, I feel like just jumped ahead like 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
And that's just because I hired somebody who knows exactly what they're doing. And maybe there's two or three things that they shared with me that changed my business forever. So, same thing in investing, right? I can try and figure it out on my own, which I kind of had to. There's not many people teaching passive income,
Mhm.
but why would anybody else spend years trying to figure it out when I've already figured a lot of these things out and I'm happy to share with them?
Yeah.
So,
Awesome. I love it. And I think you have the right attitude, and you know, you're very forthcoming with all the information. And I think I'd recommend people to join your thing and see how it goes. And I've had similar experiences with joining masterminds and, paying the money that sometimes you just can't believe how much you're paying for this kind of stuff. But I would say every single time I've either earned more than I've paid or I've saved more than I've paid by
Yeah.
avoiding mistakes and doing things the right way. And one thing that me and my business partner always say is, to be successful, you're always going to pay full price. It's just, do you want to pay in dollars up front or do you want to pay in time over several years?
Yeah.
And in most cases, it makes the most sense to just pay in dollars up front.
Yeah. And one thing that I try to stick to in my program is I never sell anything that I don't like, that I'm not 100% confident will
Mhm.
produce a 10x or more return. So if my program is 40K, I'm confident without a shadow of a doubt that this can produce $400,000 for somebody or more.
Yeah.
$400,000 is just the minimum. And I feel like a lot of coaches also stick to that. So just to echo what you're saying, almost I'd say every single mastermind that I've joined personally, I've just made way more than I invested in it, and
Mhm.
it made me that money this year instead of in 5 years.
Exactly.
So
And now you're gonna make it every year for the next 5 years in addition to that.
exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
very cool. One question I like to ask everyone at the end is, I have 2 young boys at home, and I just like to ask successful people on what they would say to the next generation of kids coming up on what it takes to be successful in life and business.
Yeah, what I would say for me, it was just finding that one thing that I'm passionate about and just going super deep on it because you can't be the best unless you commit like everything to that one thing. And
Mhm.
so that one thing for me is creating passive income and teaching other people how to do it. So my life is literally consumed with that. I do everything is like around that thing. It's not a 9 to 5 thing for me at all. It's like 24/7. All the time I'm doing passive income, and that's, I believe, allowed me to grow a lot in that skill, and in that space in general, just because that is the one thing that I'm focused on, and I'm committed with everything to be the best at it.
Mm,
Even if I don't feel like doing it, I'm gonna be doing it because that is my commitment. So just going really, really deep as opposed to going broad. I think that's very important.
love that. It's great advice. Everyone, make sure you go out, follow this man on Instagram at Austin Zealand. Check out his programs. Try some of these investments out and report back. Let us know how it goes. As always, if you like money and you like real estate, hit that subscribe button, and we will see you on the next one.